Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. This episode, it's book reviews, right? So we like to review some books every now and then here on the channel. Today we've got a twofer from our good friend, Mr. Martin Popoff. You heard us mention these books on one or more of the previous Friday Morning at the Funhouse episodes. Well, now we got the full reviews of them. So these are two Genesis panel books that Martin has just published. The first one is called Entangled, Genesis on Record 1969 to 1976. And as you can imagine, that's the very, very first album from Genesis to Revelation, all the way up to the last album with Steve Hackett, Wind and Wuthering. Okay, so this looks at all of the albums, start to finish, from those two, with a panel of passionate fans of Genesis, right? Some experts as well, myself included here, to talk about each of these albums song by song with Martin. That's the first one. The second volume is Behind the Lines, Genesis on Record 1978 to 1997. So that, of course, is from, and then there were three all the way to Calling All Stations. The post-Hackett and Peter Gabriel era, right? All the way up to that final album. Okay, so let's take a look at each one of these here. So like I said, these are panel books. Martin just gets everybody together to talk about the albums, to talk about all the songs. There's different crews for each of the albums, right? So, like, for instance, I spoke about three of the albums here. You get various other people. Let me just read you the cast of folks who participated in these. So for the first book, the Entangled book, all the early stuff, you got Phil Aston. Of course, Phil Aston. We all know Phil Aston very, very well. Now Spinning Magazine. He's appeared here on Sea of Tranquility numerous times. You got Daniel Bosch. You got Ralph Chapman. You have Tate Davis. You got Todd Evans. Davey Gallagher. You know, our very own Davey Gallagher. Rand Kelly. Jamie Laszlo. Louis Nasser. Charles Neeland. Pontus Norshamar. Myself. Philip Edward Phyllis. And Bill Schuster, right? So those are the folks that participate with Martin in this particular book. So again, and it goes album by album. So here, each chapter starts off, right? You got usually the album cover, or album covers, because some of these have multiple covers. You get information like when it was produced, the year it was released, the label, who produced it, engineered it, obviously the musicians and what they played on it, the track lists. And then it kind of starts, and you get a timeline of things leading up to this album release, so some cool factoids about what was going on with the band and whatnot. And then the breakdown, all right? So this is how each chapter starts out. So here Martin talks to Daniel Bosch, Ralph Chapman, David Gallagher, and Rand Kelly about From Genesis to Revelation. And you go track by track, and everybody gets to kind of give their 2 cents into those particular songs from that particular album. And then it's actually quite an interesting read if you haven't checked out any of these panel books before. And there's like all sorts of photographs all throughout, some classic stuff, right? Look at that old shot of Steve Hackett sitting down on his Gibson Les Paul, right? Lots of cool stuff in here. And what I really love about these books, not only just participating in them, because I've done a couple of them, but it makes you, this is what a book like this always results in. As you're reading it, after you get done reading it, what you want, what you're doing is you're listening or reading, right? Opinions and reactions to these albums that we all know so well, or in some instances maybe you don't know them well and you're looking to get into a band like Genesis, right? And you're hearing from different people of different ages, from different backgrounds, in many cases different musical preferences, what these albums mean to them, what these songs mean to them. So you get someone like a Rand Kelly, who obviously when these albums were coming out was buying these albums back when he was a teenager, right back in the early mid 70s. You're getting a Louis Nasser, who is talking about the concepts behind the musical concepts behind these albums and how the chord progressions relate, and the things like keys and notes that were used. You get guys like Jamie Laszlo who are, talking about how these albums affected him from a kind of emotional, visceral level, right? Myself, who likes to break down the song structures, right, and talk about how all of these different instruments kind of relate to each other and the drama that they create, right? So you get all these people talking about, the history of these songs, these albums, and what it means to them, and sometimes it gets broken down into technical terms. And the great thing about it is, I know these songs and these albums really, really well. I've been listening to Genesis for decades. But like even me, like in rereading or reading this stuff, you know what it does? It makes me, I'm hearing all these different opinions and all these things that people get out of these songs. Because like I always say, everybody hears things differently. And sometimes, even though you've listened to an album or albums like hundreds of times over your lifespan, you hear or read someone else describing something in a certain way, and you're like, oh, I never quite heard it that way. Let me go back and re-listen and see if I can experience what that other person is hearing and what they are describing. So what this made me want to do, both of these books, made me want to go and revisit all of these albums all over again, even though I already did this prior to taking part in these books, and I've listened to these albums so many times. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. So anyway, as we go through, obviously you have Trespass. It takes you album by album, and then of course you got Nursery Crime. I took part in the Foxtrot album in this particular book, and also then in the other book I took part in and then there were 3 in Duke. But they're all here. So you've got Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering and so on and so forth. And then in the other book, again, this is all the later stuff. It starts off, and here you've got the panel for this particular book. Most of these are pretty similar. You've got Grant Arthur takes part in this particular book. Of course, we know Grant very well. Daniel Bosch, Ralph Chapman, Tate Davis, Todd Evans, David Gallagher. Again, folks, all sorts of people that Martin is friendly with, from the Contrarians and Sea of Tranquility, and so on and so forth. Rand Kelly, Jamie Laszlo, Douglas Maher, Pontus Norshamar, myself, and Bill Schuster. And again, this particular one starts off from, and then there were 3. It takes you all the way up through Calling All Stations. And, again, lots of cool photographs and things in the middle. All sorts of cool covers of singles and EPs and stuff like that. Just really great to be a part of these, but even more importantly is to go, and then after they've all been put together, is to go read and then see everybody's, as they're talking about, Dancing with the Moonlit Night. We get like 3 or 4 different takes on that song and what their impressions of it are. So it's really, really cool to just get all of these different opinions and things of all these songs and these albums that we know so well. So yeah, this is masterfully put together, and Martin does a great job of editing all this stuff together. I can't imagine the workload and the amount of time spent to kind of amass all of this and just put it in a way that's so easy to read and easy to get into, and ultimately just makes you want to go and listen to the albums all over again. So yeah, go check these out. I'm going to put the link down to martinpopoff.com down below. Entangled and Behind the Lines, Genesis on Record, 1978 to 1997, and 1969 to 1976. So ultimately it's 1969 to 1997. Go check them out and enjoy. Loads and loads of fun for all you Genesis fans. This is on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. Thank you in advance for all your support there. It's greatly appreciated as always, and we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I'm Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.